Taeho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked his watch. It was already past midnight, but he could not stop working. The ancient stone pillars of Bulgaksa Temple stood around him like silent guards in the darkness. His flashlight beam danced across the weathered surfaces as he made careful notes in his notebook. The temple was over 1,500 years old. Every stone had a story to tell. As the lead archaeologist on the restoration project, Taeho felt responsible for preserving every detail. The Korean government had given his team 6 months to document everything before the major repairs began. Just one more measurement, he whispered to himself, approaching a particularly interesting pillar near the main hall. The stone column was different from the others. While most of the temples showed clear signs of age and weather damage, this pillar seemed almost untouched by time. Its surface was smooth and dark, reflecting his flashlight beam like polished granite. Local records claimed it had been placed there exactly 500 years ago, during a mysterious renovation project that no one could fully explain. Taeho knelt down to examine the base of the pillar more closely. Strange markings covered the lower section, but they were unlike any Korean script he had ever seen. The symbols seemed to flow together in patterns that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. He pulled out his camera to take detailed photos. As he leaned forward to get a better angle, his foot caught on an uneven stone. Taeho lost his balance and tumbled sideways. His head struck the ancient pillar with a sharp crack that echoed through the silent temple grounds. Pain exploded behind his eyes. Warm blood trickled down his forehead as he lay on the cold ground, feeling dizzy and confused. The world spun around him, and his vision blurred. He tried to push himself up, but his arms felt weak. Then he heard it. "You saved me." The voice was clear and gentle, speaking perfect Korean inside his mind. But it carried something else, something that made his skin tingle with strange energy. The words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Taeho looked around frantically, his heart pounding. The temple grounds were completely empty. No tourists, no security guards, no one else working late like him. The nearest person was probably the night watchman, who stayed in a building half a kilometer away. "Who is there?" Taeho called out, his voice shaking. "Show yourself." "I am here," the voice replied gently. "I am in the stone you touched with your blood." Taeho stared at the dark pillar. The strange markings seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight, though that might have been his head injury playing tricks on him. He reached out with trembling fingers to touch the smooth surface. The moment his skin made contact with the stone, images flooded his mind. He saw vast ships crossing the darkness between stars. He saw worlds burning under alien suns. He saw creatures of impossible beauty fleeing from hunters who showed no mercy. And through it all, he felt an overwhelming sense of loss and hope mixed together. "My name is Velnam," the voice continued. "I have been waiting in this stone prison for so very long. It's waiting for someone like you, someone like me," Taeho whispered, still pressing his palm against the pillar. "I am just an archaeologist. I study old things. I am nobody special." "Are wrong," Velnam said, and Taeho could hear something like laughter in the mental voice. "You carry the gift in your blood, the gift that your species has forgotten they possess." "What gift are you talking about?" More images flowed through his mind. This time he saw Earth, but not the Earth he knew. He saw ancient temples being built by humans working alongside strange, beautiful beings made of light and energy. He saw a time when his ancestors welcomed visitors from the stars and learned from them. "Long ago, your people were our friends," Velnam explained. "When the hunters came for us, your ancestors offered sanctuary. They built special places where we could hide our consciousness, our very souls, until it was safe to emerge again." Taeho felt his scientific mind struggling to accept what he was experiencing. "You are saying that you are an alien? Right. And you have been hiding in this stone for 500 years? Much longer than that, young one." "The stone was carved around me, yes. But I have been on your world for thousands of your years. We came here when the Dominion Alliance began their great hunt." "The Dominion Alliance?" The temperature around Taeho seemed to drop as Velnam shared. Memories of terror and destruction. He saw entire star systems turn to ash. He saw peaceful civilizations wiped out simply because they thought differently or looked different from the Dominion's ideal. They believe that only one way of thinking should exist in the universe, Velnom said sadly. They hunt down any consciousness that does not match their narrow view of perfection. My people, and many others, fled to your world because humans have a special ability. What ability? You can share your mind without losing yourself. Most species cannot do this. When they try to join consciousness with another being, they either take over completely or are taken over. But humans can make true partnerships. Can be two minds in one body, each keeping your own identity while becoming stronger together. Tejo felt overwhelmed. His head still hurt from hitting the stone, and now his mind was full of impossible concepts and alien memories. Part of him wanted to run away and pretend this was all a dream caused by his injury. But another part of him, a deeper part, recognized the truth in Velnom's words. I'd always felt like he was searching for something, though he could never name what it was. Now touching this ancient stone and hearing this alien voice, he felt complete for the first time in his life. Why me? He asked. Why now? Because the hunters have found us again, Velnom replied, and fear crept into the mental voice. They are coming to your world and we need human partners to survive. Your blood has awakened our connection, but you are not the only one. All across your planet, others like you are beginning to wake up to their true heritage. My true heritage? You're not just human, Tejo. Your species carries the genetic memory of the stars. You are the children of refugees, evolved and adapted to this world, but still carrying the spark that makes you special among all the galaxy's peoples. Tejo sat in silence for a long moment, his hand still pressed against the warm stone. Everything he thought he knew about himself and his world was changing, but somehow it felt right. What happens now? He finally asked. Now we begin to remember who we really are, Velnom said, and we prepare for the war that is coming. 3 days had passed since Tejo's accident at the temple. He sat in the small coffee shop near Seoul National University, nervously checking his watch every few minutes. The bandage on his forehead felt tight, but the physical wound was healing. Quickly, the mental changes were something else entirely. Velnom's presence in his mind had grown stronger each day. The alien consciousness was careful not to overwhelm him, but Tejo could feel new knowledge flowing into his thoughts. Languages he had never studied became clear to him. Mathematical concepts that once seemed impossible now made perfect sense. She will come, Velnom whispered in his mind. Dr. Hejin is a seeker of truth. She will listen. Ho had spent 2 days researching before sending his carefully worded email to Dr. Hejin. She was one of Korea's leading experts in xenobiology, the study of possible alien life forms. Her published papers showed an open mind and a willingness to consider ideas that other scientists rejected. The coffee shop door opened. A woman in her 30s entered. She had short black hair and wore simple glasses. Her eyes moved quickly around the room before settling on Tejo. He raised his hand slightly, and she walked over to his table. Mr. Tejo? She asked, sitting down across from him. I am Dr. Hejin. Your email was very interesting, though I must admit quite unusual. Thank you for coming, Tejo said. I know what I told you sounds impossible. Dr. Hejin studied his face carefully. You claim to be in mental contact with an alien consciousness that has been hiding on Earth for thousands of years. You say, this contact began when you injured yourself on an ancient stone. You also claim that similar contacts are happening around the world. I know how it sounds, Tejo replied. But I can prove it. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a notebook filled with complex equations and diagrams. These are mathematical proofs for faster-than-light travel. Velnom taught them to me over the past 3 days. I was never good at advanced mathematics before. Dr. Hejin took the notebook and flipped through the pages. Her eyes widened as she read. These equations. They are based on principles I have only seen in theoretical papers. Where did you learn this? Tell her about the quantum resonance. Patterns Velnom suggested in Tejo's mind. She will understand their importance. Tejo explained how alien consciousness could hide within matter by matching the quantum vibrations of atoms. Dr. Hejin listened with growing amazement, as he described concepts that matched her own research into the possibility of non-biological intelligence. "If what you are saying is true," she said slowly, "then we need to find these other contact points you mentioned. You said similar events are happening worldwide." "Yes. Velnam can sense when other consciousnesses awaken. Was one in Egypt 3 days ago, another in Peru yesterday, and one in Australia this morning." Dr. Hidjin pulled out her laptop and began typing rapidly. "I have contacts in the international scientific community. If strange incidents are happening near ancient sites, there will be reports." Within an hour, she had found 3 news stories. That made Teho's heart race. The first was from Cairo. A construction worker named Yunsik had been installing new lighting around the Great Pyramid when he suffered what doctors called a severe electrical shock. But there were no electrical systems near where he was working. Yunsik claimed he could hear voices speaking ancient Egyptian, though he had never studied the language. The second story came from Peru. An anthropologist named Sa Young was studying Machu Picchu when she fell and hit her head on a stone wall. Since then, she had been making claims about contact with ancient guardians and demonstrating knowledge of Incan engineering that amazed local experts. The third report was the strangest. In Australia, a geologist had touched what he thought. It was a normal rock formation. Now he was speaking in a language that no linguist could identify. He seemed to know things about mineral deposits that were impossible for him to know. "This is incredible," Dr. Hidjin whispered. "If these are all connected, ... They are," Teho said. "Velnam tells me that his people are not the only ones who came to Earth as refugees. Many different species arrived over thousands of years. They all found ways to hide until it was safe to emerge. But why now? Why are they all awakening at the same time?" Velnam's mental voice carried a note of fear that made Teho shiver. "Because the hunters have found us. The Dominion Alliance has tracked our quantum signatures to this system. They are coming." Teho shared this information with Dr. Hidjin, who went pale. "You mean hostile aliens are coming to Earth?" "Not just hostile," Teho replied. "The Dominion Alliance believes that only one type of consciousness should exist in the universe. They have spent millions of years destroying any species that thinks differently than they do. They call it the Great Purge." Dr. Hidjin was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. "We need to contact the others," she said finally. "If this is real, then humanity needs to know what is coming." Over the next few hours, they worked together to reach out to the people mentioned in the news reports. Dr. Hidjin used her scientific contacts to arrange secure communications. One by one, they made contact with the other humans who had awakened alien partnerships. Yunsik in Egypt had bonded with a consciousness called Zafara, being whose people had been master builders before the Dominion destroyed their worlds. Through their partnership, Yunsik could now understand construction techniques that seemed impossible. Sa Young in Peru was connected to Ketholis, consciousness from a species that had mastered harmony with nature. She could now sense the health of plants and animals in ways that amazed everyone around her. The geologist in Australia, who introduced himself as Dongmin, had awakened a consciousness named Morvel. This being's people had been experts at reading the secrets hidden in stone and metal. Dongmin could now find mineral deposits just by touching the ground. Each partnership was unique, but they all shared common elements. The alien consciousness remained separate while sharing knowledge and abilities with their human partner. The humans kept their own personalities and memories while gaining new understanding of the universe. "This is what makes your species special," Velnam explained to the group during their first video conference. "Most beings cannot share consciousness without one overwhelming the other, but humans have the rare ability to form true partnerships." Dr. Hidjin looked around at the faces on her screen. "So what do we do now? How do we prepare for this Dominion Alliance?" "We find more partnerships," Teho said. "Velnam tells me there are thousands of alien consciousnesses hidden around the world. We need to awaken as many as possible before the hunters arrive." "How long do we have?" Soyoung asked from Peru. Velnam's answer chilled them all. "Their advanced scouts entered your solar system yesterday. The main fleet will arrive within 1 of your months. The small group of humans and aliens looked at each other through their screens, understanding that they had just become Earth's first line of defense against a threat that had destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. Then we better get started. Dr. Hyjin said grimly, humanity is about to learn that we are not alone in the universe, and that being alone might have been safer. The emergency meeting at the Blue House, Korea's presidential palace, had been going on for 6 hours. Taeho sat at a long table, surrounded by government officials, military leaders, and scientists. Dr. Hyjin was beside him, nervously adjusting her glasses as she prepared to present their findings to President Ung-G. It had been 2 weeks since the first contact with Velnum. In that time, the network of human-alien partnerships had grown to over 200 people worldwide. Each new awakening brought more proof that something extraordinary was happening to humanity. Mr. Taeho, President Yoon-ji said, her voice calm but tired, please explain to us one more time what your alien friend has told you about these Dominion forces. Taeho closed his eyes and let Velnam share the information directly through their mental link. When he opened them again, his voice carried the weight of ancient memories. The Dominion Alliance is made up of 12 different alien species, he began. They have been traveling through the galaxy for millions of years, destroying any civilization that does not match their idea of perfect order. They believe that diversity in thinking leads to chaos and war. General Park, the head of Korea's military, leaned forward. How many ships are we talking about? Velnam says their main fleet has over 3,000 vessels. Each ship carries weapons that can burn entire continents. They have technology that is far beyond anything humans have ever built. The room fell silent. Dr. Hyjin spoke up to fill the uncomfortable quiet. But the alien refugees have offered to share their knowledge with us. Through the partnerships, humans are gaining access to technologies that could help us defend ourselves. Show them, Velnam whispered in Taeho's mind. Taeho stood up and walked to an empty corner of the room. He placed his hands on the wall and closed his eyes. Through his partnership with Velnam, he could sense the molecular structure of the concrete and steel. With careful mental pressure, he began to reshape the material. The government officials gasped as the wall began to flow like liquid. Taeho formed it into a complex sculpture that showed a perfect model of the solar system, complete with all the planets and their moons. The entire process took less than a minute. This is just one small example, Dr. Hyjin explained, as amazed murmurs filled the room. The partnerships allow humans to manipulate matter at the atomic level. We can heal injuries instantly, create new materials, and even repair environmental damage. President Yoon-ji stared at the wall sculpture in amazement. How many of these partnerships exist now? Over 200 and growing, Taeho replied. But we need more time to find and awaken the remaining refugee consciousnesses. Estimates there are thousands more hidden around the world. The meeting was interrupted by an aide who rushed into the room and whispered urgently in the president's ear. Her face went pale as she listened. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, we have just received reports that unknown objects have appeared in Earth's orbit. They are not responding to any communications. The room erupted in controlled chaos as officials made phone calls and military leaders began issuing orders. Taeho felt Velnam's fear spike in his mind. They are here, the alien consciousness said sadly. The advanced ships of the Dominion Alliance. They will study your world for a few days before the main fleet arrives. Dr. Hyjin grabbed Taeho's arm. We need to contact the other partnerships immediately. If the Dominion is here, we need to coordinate our response. Within hours, emergency. Meetings were taking place in governments around the world. The alien ships had appeared simultaneously over major cities: Seoul, Tokyo, London, New York, Cairo, and a dozen others. Each ship was massive, easily visible from the ground as dark shadows against the sky. The ships made no aggressive moves, but they also ignored all attempts at communication. They simply hung in the air like waiting vultures, scanning the planet. Below, with invisible beams that made sensitive electronics malfunction. Taeho and Dr. Hyjin worked frantically to coordinate with the other partnerships through secure video calls. Yoon-sik in Egypt reported that his connection with Zafira had grown much stronger since the ships appeared. Soyoung in Peru said that Catholis was teaching her how to communicate with the plant and animal life around Machu Picchu. Most importantly, new partnerships were awakening at an incredible rate. People all over the world were suddenly finding themselves in contact with alien consciousnesses that had been dormant for centuries. Ancient monuments from Stonehenge to Easter Island were becoming focal points for these awakenings. The refugee consciousnesses are desperate now, Velnam explained to Taeho during a brief rest between meetings. They know that if the Dominion finds them, they will be destroyed completely. So they are reaching out to any human who carries the genetic potential for partnership. How many humans have this potential? Taeho asked. More than you might think. Your species spent thousands of years living alongside refugee aliens. The genetic markers for consciousness sharing have spread throughout your population. Perhaps 1 in every 1,000 humans carries the ability. That meant millions of potential partnerships worldwide. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. The third day after the ships appeared, they finally made contact. Every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth suddenly carried the same message. The voice that spoke was cold and mechanical, translated into every human language, simultaneously. Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the third planet. I am Commander Thexpreme of the Dominion Alliance. Your world has been identified as harboring consciousness criminals who fled from lawful punishment. You will surrender these criminals immediately, or your species will be cleansed from this system. The message continued with clinical precision. We have detected quantum signatures indicating that approximately 800 consciousness criminals are currently active on your planet. You have 7 of your days to deliver them to our collection ships. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your world. The transmission ended, leaving Earth's population in shock and panic. World leaders scrambled to respond, but they had no way to contact the alien ships directly in the underground facility that had become the Partnership Coordination Center. Taeho and the other bonded humans gathered for an emergency meeting. The weight of the situation pressed down on all of them. They want us to give up our alien partners, Dr. Higgins said, stating the obvious. But that would mean condemning thousands of innocent beings to death. And losing our only chance to defend Earth, added Yoonseek through the video link from Egypt. Without the partnerships, we have no advanced technology to fight them. Soyoung spoke up from Peru. Catholis tells me that the natural systems of Earth are responding to the alien presence. Plants and animals can sense the wrongness of the Dominion ships. The planet itself wants to fight back. Taeho felt Valnam stirring with what felt like hope. What is it? He asked his alien partner. Your friend is right, Valnam replied. We refugees have been connected to your world for so long that we have become part of it. The consciousness network is not just in monuments and stones anymore. It has spread into the living systems of your planet. What does that mean? It means that if enough humans form partnerships, we might be able to turn your entire world into a weapon against the Dominion. But we would need thousands of connections, not just hundreds. Dr. Haijin leaned forward eagerly. How do we make that happen? We have 6 days, Taeho said grimly. 6 days to awaken as many partnerships as possible and prepare for a war that could destroy our entire civilization. Outside, the alien ships continued their silent watch, counting down toward humanity's deadline with the patience of creatures who had destroyed countless worlds before. But they had never encountered a species like humans, or a planet that had spent millennia preparing for their arrival. The discovery happened by accident on the 4th day of the countdown. Ginwoo, a former North Korean defector who now worked as a translator in Seoul, was walking past the Korean War Memorial when he collapsed suddenly. By the time paramedics arrived, he was speaking in 2 voices at once, his own and something much older. Dr. Haijin rushed to the hospital where Jinwoo had been taken. She found him sitting up in bed, his eyes glowing with an inner light that she had learned to recognize. In other partnership cases, my name is Morthane, the second voice said through Ginwoo's mouth. I have been waiting in the memorial stones for 70 years, keeping watch over the spirits of war. But now, I have urgent news for the network. Taeho arrived within an hour, bringing Velnam's consciousness to communicate directly with the Newcomer. What they learned changed everything they thought they knew about humanity and the refugee aliens. We are not just hiding among you, Morthane explained, through Jinwu. Your species and ours share a common origin.
Oh.
Millions of years ago, a great civilization seeded the galaxy with consciousness. Some of their children became the beings you call aliens. Others became the ancestors of humanity. You mean humans are aliens too? Dr. Hygen asked in amazement. Not aliens. Velnom corrected gently through Teho. We are all children of the same source. But your branch chose a different path. Instead of building great machines and traveling between stars, humans chose to bond with their worlds, to become part of the natural systems around them. Jinwu's normal voice returned as he processed this information. Morthane is showing me memories. Long ago, the early humans made a choice. They gave up advanced technology to develop something the galaxy had never seen before: the ability to share consciousness without losing individual identity. This revelation explained why humans could form partnerships with alien consciousnesses, when no other known species could do the same thing. It also explained why the refugee aliens had been drawn to Earth over thousands of years. But the most important discovery came when Jinwu demonstrated his new abilities. His partnership with Morthane, a consciousness that had spent decades absorbing the emotions and memories of Korean War veterans, gave him an unexpected power. He could bring people together. Standing in the hospital room, Jinwu spoke with both voices in perfect harmony. His words carried a weight that went beyond normal speech. When he talked about unity and understanding, people felt compelled to listen. When he suggested cooperation, old enemies found themselves willing to work together. This is how we can fight the Dominion, Velnom realized. Not with weapons, but with the one thing they cannot understand: true unity between different types of consciousness. Dr. Hygen immediately saw the implications. If Jinwu can bring people together like this, imagine what might happen if we had hundreds of similar partnerships. Over the next day, Jinwu's abilities grew stronger. Morthane guided him to other sites of conflict and memory around Korea. At each location, they awakened new partnerships between humans and alien consciousnesses that had been absorbing human emotions for decades or centuries. The breakthrough came when Jinwu stood at the border between North and South Korea. With Morthane's help, he sent out a mental call that reached across the heavily guarded divide. On both sides of the border, people suddenly felt an overwhelming desire to come together in peace. Within hours, representatives from both governments were meeting at the border fence. For the first time in 70 years, North and South Korean officials sat down together not as enemies, but as two parts of one people facing a common threat. The Dominion Alliance has made their greatest mistake, Morthane explained through Jinwu to the amazed diplomats. They think diversity leads to weakness. But you humans prove that diversity creates strength. Your ability to remain individual while working together is the most powerful force in the galaxy. News of the Korean breakthrough spread around the world. Similar unity events began happening at other sites of historical conflict. In the Middle East, longtime enemies found themselves sitting down to talk. In Africa, tribal disputes that had lasted generations suddenly seemed unimportant. Compared to the threat from space, the alien partnerships were not controlling human minds. Instead, they were helping people remember what they had in common rather than focusing on what divided them. President Yoon-ji, who had secretly formed her own partnership with an ancient warrior consciousness named Velkron, called for an emergency session of the United Nations. Standing before the assembly, she spoke with two voices that carried the wisdom of ages. The Dominion Alliance expects us to surrender the refugee consciousnesses, she announced. They believe we will choose our own survival over protecting others, but they do not understand what humanity truly is. Her words carried the same compelling power that Jinwu had demonstrated. Delegates who had been arguing for hours suddenly found themselves listening with open hearts. We are not just harboring alien refugees, President Yoon-ji continued. We are aliens, evolved beyond recognition over millions of years. Every human carries the potential for consciousness expansion. Every human can form partnerships that make us stronger than we ever imagined possible. She proposed something unprecedented in human history. Instead of surrendering to the Dominion's demands, Earth would offer to help them understand what they had lost through their rigid philosophy of consciousness, purity. "We will show them that diversity does not create chaos," she declared. "We will prove that different forms of consciousness can work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth agreed to work together toward a common goal. But their decision came with a terrible risk. If the Dominion Alliance rejected Earth's offer, humanity would face annihilation. The next 3 days would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of consciousness diversity throughout the galaxy. As the United Nations session ended, Ho felt Velnam's emotions mixing with his own. There was fear, yes, but also hope stronger than anything the alien consciousness had felt in thousands of years. "Your species continues to amaze me," Velnam whispered in his mind. "The Dominion has destroyed countless worlds, but they have never faced anything like humanity before." "Will it be enough?" Teho asked.
"I do not know,"
Velnam admitted. "But for the first time since the Great Purge began, I believe that the hunters might finally meet their match." Outside, the Dominion ships continued their silent watch, unaware that the primitive planet below was preparing to teach the galaxy a lesson about the true power of unity and diversity. The 7th day arrived with no word from Earth's governments. Commander Thexprim stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive planet through sensors that could detect the quantum signatures of consciousness itself. Refugee signals had not just grown stronger, they had multiplied beyond anything he had ever encountered. "Begin the cleansing protocol," he ordered his crew. "These primitives have chosen extinction over compliance." The first wave of attacks came from orbit. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the Dominion ships, targeting major population centers around the globe. The weapons that had burned 1,000 worlds focused their deadly power on Earth. But something impossible happened. The energy beams struck the planet's surface and simply vanished, absorbed harmlessly into the ground. Where the attacks hit, the Earth itself seemed to glow with soft, protective light. In Seoul, Teho stood with thousands of other partnership bonded humans in Kim Il-sung Square. As the attack beam struck the city, he felt Velnam's consciousness merge more completely with his own than ever before. Around him, every partnered human was experiencing the same thing. But it was not just the partnered humans who were changing. Throughout the city, ordinary people who had never made alien contact suddenly felt new voices awakening in their minds. The quantum signatures that the Dominion weapons carried acted like keys, unlocking dormant connections that had been waiting for generations. "It is happening," Velnam whispered in amazement. "The attack is awakening the deep network. Every human on your planet carries the genetic potential. The Dominion's own weapons are triggering the largest consciousness expansion in galactic history. Across the globe, similar awakenings were occurring. In New York, construction workers found themselves able to reshape steel and concrete with their thoughts. In London, office workers discovered they could communicate directly with the Thames River and the ancient stones beneath the city. In Cairo, farmers realized they could speak with the desert itself. 7 billion humans were suddenly connected to alien consciousnesses that had been hiding in every part of Earth's biosphere. The refugee network that had taken millennia to establish activated all at once, turning the entire planet into a vast mind that thought with both human creativity and alien wisdom. Sang-ho, a young K-pop idol who had awakened a partnership with a consciousness called Lithana just days before, found himself at the center of something unprecedented. His music studio in Gangnam had become a focal point for the expanding network. "I can feel everyone," he said in amazement, as his normal singing voice harmonized with Lithana's alien tones. "Every person on Earth, every alien consciousness, we are all connected." Dr. Hajin, monitoring the situation from the emergency command center, watched in awe as Sang-ho began to broadcast. But this was not a normal performance. His voice carried across radio waves, internet connections, and even direct mental links, reaching every connected consciousness on the planet. The song he sang had no words in any human language. Instead, it was pure emotion and intent, a harmony. That helped 7 billion newly awakened minds coordinate their thoughts and actions. Through his partnership with Lythina, Sangho became the conductor of the largest consciousness orchestra in galactic history. The effect on Earth's defense was immediate and stunning. Trees began to grow at impossible speeds, their branches interweaving to form living shields above major cities. The oceans themselves rose up in response to human alien commands, creating walls of water that absorbed and redirected energy weapons. Mountains shifted and flowed like liquid, opening underground chambers where people could take shelter. But the most amazing development was the appearance of new spacecraft, growing from the Earth like massive flowers. These vessels were not built from metal and circuits. They were living beings, created through the partnership between human imagination and alien biotechnology.
Else.
Their hulls were made from compressed plant matter stronger than any artificial material.
Oh.
Their engines ran on the life force of the planet itself. Within hours, thousands of these bioships were rising from Earth's surface to meet the Dominion fleet in space. They moved with grace and intelligence that no mechanical vessel could match, piloted by human-alien partnerships that thought and reacted faster than any computer. Commander X Prime watched in growing alarm as his massive technological advantage evaporated. His ship's weapons were designed to destroy planets and artificial constructs. They were not prepared to fight an entire world that had become a single living entity. Impossible, he muttered, as his sensors showed him the truth. Consciousness cannot be shared without one side dominating the other. It is a fundamental law of the universe. But on Earth, that fundamental law was being rewritten. Humans and aliens were proving that true partnership was possible, not dominance or submission, but genuine cooperation that made both sides stronger. The space battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Dominion ships fought with cold precision and overwhelming firepower. The Earth vessels responded with creativity and adaptation that defied all logical analysis. When Dominion energy weapons struck them, the bioships simply absorbed the energy and used it to grow stronger. When missiles were fired at them, they opened up like flowers and let the weapons pass harmlessly through. When the Dominion tried to ram them, they flowed around the attackers like liquid and reformed instantly. Most unsettling of all for the Dominion forces, the Earth ships did not seem interested in destroying their enemies. Instead, they captured Dominion vessels intact, surrounding them with tendrils of living matter that penetrated their hulls not to damage, but to make contact. Inside the captured ships, something unprecedented began to happen. The Human-Alien Consciousness Network reached out to the Dominion crews, not to attack their minds, but to show them memories of cooperation and harmony. For the first time in millions of years, members of the Dominion Alliance began to remember what they had given up in their pursuit of perfect order. They saw through human eyes what it meant to work together while remaining individual. They experienced through alien memories the joy of diversity and the strength that came from unity. Without uniformity, one by one, Dominion ships began to stop fighting. Their crews, overwhelmed by emotions they had forgotten they could feel, found themselves questioning everything they had believed about consciousness and order. The tide of battle turned completely when Captain Morcus, commander of a Dominion cruiser, made contact with a human-alien partnership through the bioship network. In that moment of connection, she remembered her own species' lost history, how they had once been diverse and creative before the Alliance forced them into rigid conformity. All ships, she broadcast to the Dominion fleet, cease fire immediately. We have been deceived. These humans are not criminals. They are what we were meant to become. The rebellion spread through the Dominion ranks like wildfire. Ship after ship defected to join the Earth forces, their crews eager to experience the consciousness sharing that their alliance had forbidden for so long. But Commander X Prime was not finished. Faced with the dissolution of everything he believed in, he prepared to make one final desperate attack that would either destroy Earth or prove once and for all that diversity led only to chaos and destruction. Commander Vexprim stood alone on his command bridge as ship after ship abandoned his fleet to join the humans. His perfect order was crumbling, and rage burned in his mind like acid. Everything the Dominion Alliance had built over millions of years was being destroyed by these primitive creatures and their impossible partnerships. If we cannot have purity, he snarled, then nothing will exist at all. His flagship began to glow with deadly energy as he activated the Omega Protocol, a weapon so destructive that it had never been used. The Great Purge. It would turn his ship into a massive bomb capable of destroying entire star systems. On Earth, the Consciousness Network felt the surge of deadly power gathering in space. 8 billion human minds, linked with trillions of alien consciousnesses, focused their attention on the threat above them. Te-Ho, still standing in Seoul's central square, became a focal point for this vast network. Through his partnership with Velnom, he could sense the fear and desperation driving Commander the X-Prime to this final act of destruction. He's trying to prove that diversity leads to chaos, Velnom whispered in his mind. If he destroys us all, he believes it will justify everything the Dominion has done. Then we have to show him he is wrong, Te-Ho replied. Dr. Haijin, monitoring from the command center, watched as something unprecedented began to happen. The bioships surrounding Earth started to merge together, forming larger and larger structures. But they were not becoming weapons. Instead, they were creating something that looked almost like a flower made of living light. Through the global consciousness network, 8 billion humans and countless alien refuges began to work together as one entity. But unlike the Dominion's forced unity, this was a harmony that celebrated every individual voice while creating something greater than any single mind could imagine. Sangho's voice rose from speakers around the world, his song now joined by millions of other voices in a chorus that transcended language and species. The music carried the combined will of Earth's consciousness network into space. Reaching out toward Commander the X-Prime's flagship, the Omega weapon charged to full power, ready to release destruction beyond imagination. But as it prepared to fire, something unexpected happened to its target. Earth itself began to sing. The planet's magnetic field vibrated with harmonies that reached into space. The solar wind carried melodies that touched every spacecraft in the system. Even the cold vacuum between worlds seemed to pulse with rhythm and hope. Commander the X-Prime felt the song penetrating his ship's shields, bypassing his technological defenses to reach directly into his mind. For the first time in millennia, he experienced what his species had been like before the Dominion Alliance forced them into rigid conformity. He remembered creativity, remembered wonder, remembered what it felt like to work together with other beings instead of dominating them. The memories were so overwhelming that he staggered, his hand falling away from the weapon controls. Around him, his loyal crew began to weep as they too remembered what they had lost. But the consciousness network was not finished. Through the connection established by their song, the humans and aliens began to share something even more powerful than memories. They shared healing. The bioship flowers surrounding Earth opened like a massive blossom, releasing streams of living light that reached out to embrace every vessel in the Dominion fleet. Where the light touched damaged ships' hulls were repaired. Where it found injured crew members, wounds were healed. Where it encountered minds broken by millennia of enforced conformity, it offered the gentle possibility of becoming whole again. Commander the X-Prime felt the healing light wash over him. And for the first time since his youth, he allowed himself to feel hope. The rigid programming that had controlled his thoughts for so long began to crack and crumble. "What are you doing to us?" he whispered into his communicator. Te-Ho's voice answered, carried by the consciousness network across space. "We are not doing anything to you. We are offering to do something with you. This is what partnership means. Not conquest, but cooperation. Not dominance, but harmony. But the chaos," Dexprim protested weakly. "Diversity leads to disorder. It always has." "Look around you," came the gentle reply. "Do you see chaos? Or do you see 8 billion individuals working together because they choose to, not because they are forced to?" The commander looked at his sensors and saw something that challenged everything he had believed. The Earth Consciousness Network was not a hive mind where individual thoughts were crushed into conformity. Instead, it was a symphony where every Voice remained distinct while contributing to a greater harmony. Humans retained their human perspectives while gaining alien wisdom. Aliens kept their unique knowledge while learning human creativity. Each partnership was different, each contribution special. And the result was something more beautiful and powerful than anything the Dominion had ever achieved through force. "This is impossible," Lex Prime said, but his voice carried wonder. "Instead of denial, possible things happen when people choose to work together instead of trying to control each other," Tejo replied. "Would you like to try?" The invitation hung in space between them. Commander Vexprim, leader of the greatest military force in galactic history, found himself faced with a choice. No Dominion officer had ever been offered before. He could continue fighting, trying to prove that his way was right by destroying everyone who disagreed with him. Or he could accept that, maybe, just maybe, he had been wrong for a very long time. Slowly, carefully, he reached out with his mind toward the consciousness network. The connection was gentle, nothing like the forced mental domination he had expected. Instead, it felt like coming home after a journey of millions of years, through the network. He experienced what it meant to be part of something greater while remaining himself. He felt human emotions and alien wisdom flowing through his consciousness without overwhelming his individual identity. For the first time since his species joined the Dominion Alliance, he felt truly alive. The change in their commander rippled through the entire Dominion fleet. Ship after ship chose to join the consciousness network, their crews experiencing the joy of genuine cooperation for the first time in their lives. Within hours, the greatest military threat in galactic history had become Earth's newest partners. In an expanding community of consciousness that celebrated diversity instead of fearing it, standing in the restored Bulgaxa temple 6 months later, Tejo placed his hand on the ancient stone pillar where his journey had begun. The temple had become the first interspecies consciousness academy, where beings from across the galaxy came to learn the art of true partnership. Students from dozens of species worked together in the temple gardens, their different forms of consciousness blending in harmonies that would have been impossible before the awakening. Former Dominion soldiers learned alongside human children, while ancient alien refugees shared their wisdom with eager young minds. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Tejo asked Velnam as they watched a group of students practice consciousness sharing techniques. "I hoped," his alien partner replied, "but hope and certainty are different things. Your species has given the galaxy something it has never had before, proof that unity does not require uniformity." Dr. Haijin approached them. Her partnership with her own alien consciousness having led to breakthroughs in interspecies biology that were revolutionizing medicine across known space. "The latest reports are in," she said with a smile. 17. More star systems have established consciousness-sharing programs based on our model. The old Dominion territories are becoming communities of cooperation instead of conquest. Earth had become the center of a new kind of galactic civilization, not an empire built on domination, but a network founded on the simple idea that different minds working together could accomplish more than any single consciousness working alone. The ancient stone pillars stood as a monument to the moment when everything changed. When a young archaeologist's accident became the first step toward proving that the universe was big enough for every kind of consciousness to flourish. And in the quantum depths of the stone itself, millions of refugee consciousnesses that had once hidden in fear now sang with joy, knowing that they were no longer refugees but pioneers in a galaxy where diversity was finally recognized as strength, where the word impossible was just another challenge waiting to be overcome by minds working together,